Should you buy the new iPhone 14? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Because apparently every version of the iPhone 14 did horrible in the market. And I think it's self-explanatory. I think one of the biggest reasons is that the iPhone 14 isn't really that much different from the iPhone 13. But today we're going to be reacting to iPhone 14 long-term review, total failure.
And the 14 Plus make up Apple's latest non-Pro iPhone lineup. And traditionally, the non-Pro iPhones were where bulk of the orders were, mainly because it allowed consumers to get a pretty feature-rich iPhone at a lower price.
Okay, I'm going to be perfectly honest. The iPhone 14 is way too big. That's almost the same size as the first iPad mini.
But dude, word is officially out. The new iPhone 14 and the 14 Plus have had a disastrous first quarter when it comes to demand. And in a weird way, this is both surprising and kind of to be expected at the same time, as both iPhone 14s are pretty solid devices within their own right, but there were some design decisions that Apple went with for these.
Look at that. That iPhone right there is big. It is. But it doesn't look big compared to the iPhone 14.
Phones that led many people to forecast early on total and utter failure. Well, I've been hands-on with both iPhone 14s for the past 4 months since their debut, so thought I'd put together a long-term review to talk about how my experience has been and give my
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how you can spend over $1,000 in an iPhone. I think the iPhone SE to the iPhone 11 is where the best iPhones lie. After that, all the improvements are simple. It's either better camera or just bigger.
On why these phones are struggling to make a smartphone market. And let's jump right into probably the most obvious reason why the iPhone 14 is struggling right now, and that's because it's strikingly similar to last year's offering. And I want to put more context into what that actually means, because Apple is known for making minor updates year to year that could be deemed similar, but that's not what I'm talking about here with the iPhone 14. This iPhone will likely go down as the least changed iPhone of all time. Yeah. Here's a list of ways in which the iPhone 14 is virtually identical to last year's 13. For starts, physical design and form factor, nothing changed minus some new colors. You get the same dimensions, build materials, and form factor with the iPhone 14. When it comes to the phone's display, again, no changes, and a particular note, still no change to the pretty dated 60Hz refresh rate. When it comes to features, you get things like Face ID, MagSafe charging, a dual camera setup in the back, all things that the iPhone has had for many years now. And speaking of cameras, the two 12-megapixel sensors on the rear and the 12-megapixel front-facing camera are, you guessed it, the same as last year's. Now, to be fair,
that's actually insane that they're making something like that's like $200 more, but it's the exact same iPhone.
To this point, this isn't something that I would deem as unusual because, again, Apple is known for making minor iterate iteration to iteration, but
I did hear it has an SOS thing, which I guess would be pretty cool. Well, not pretty cool, but if you need it, it's pretty useful.
14 really sets a new precedent is with its processor. Up to this point, Apple has equipped its latest flagship iPhones with their newest mobile processors, regardless of their Pro or non-Pro distinction, but that trend may have come to an official end. And that's because the new iPhone 14 and 14 Plus are rocking last year's A15 Bionic processor, not the newest A16. Now, before some of you come at me in the comments, yes, I recognize that it's not exactly the same, as there is one additional GPU core on the A15 Bionics that are being used on the iPhone 14s. I would still argue it's still pretty much the same processor with an upgrade that most won't ever.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't care. And when I say that, it's not like I don't care about the new iPhone. I would say that even the iPhone SE does everything an iPhone should. I don't think there's any reason to make anything better than that. If you want a better camera, get a camera. If you want a bigger phone, get an iPad or an iPad mini.
And what's important to note is that when it comes to day-to-day use for most consumers, even if the iPhone 14s were equipped with the new A16 Bionic chip, which is now exclusive to the Pro models, again, I doubt that most would even be able to tell the difference. That's because the processor Apple makes are so good, you only start to recognize their differences with certain features or performance over time, and no doubt the A15 Bionic is still an absolute powerhouse in today's market. But this lack of change may have been the hair that broke the camel's back, because it is very difficult now to talk about any exciting features to go with the non-Pro iPhones. Now, yes, you do get new things like crash detection and the new actualization when shooting video, which are good features to have. Are they that compelling to go with the newest offering? Probably not. And what I feel also contributes to the lack of interest in the iPhone 14 is that you can get a new iPhone 13 on Apple's website for $100 cheaper. So when you tie everything together, it makes it difficult to make a case for why going with the more expensive option is better, given the significant lack of differentiation. And real quick,
I really am being honest when I say that I would rather get, if I was faced between getting two items, the iPhone 14 Pro Max or an iPhone 14 mini, or just even an iPhone SE, I would get one of those instead of the iPhone 14 Pro Max. I mean, at this point, we're gonna need bigger pockets if we're getting phones at this size.
That's where you might be thinking, the iPhone 14 Plus, this phone must be a hit because it's not exactly like last year's offering. In fact, in many ways, it's quite different. If y'all remember, Apple went with a mini version of the iPhone for the iPhone 12 and 13, which likely assuming that folks prefer larger devices, Apple debuted their first plus-size non-Pro iPhone with the 14 Plus, allowing consumers to obtain a large iPhone without having to pay the Pro price. Now, this seemed like a logical strategy that I'm sure many thought would pay off, but no dude, sales of the iPhone 14 Plus are potentially even worse than the mini. And honestly, I'm more surprised by this one, mainly because I think the 14 Plus is a solid device. Yes, it has the same serious lack of differentiation like its non-Plus brother, but I thought people would jump on this larger variant. It aligns to the bigger is better trend that all phones seem to be on, and I've actually enjoyed using it over the past 4 months. I love getting the larger size without the heft and heaviness that the Pro Max versions of the iPhone has. And no lie, the battery life on this phone is definitely the best out of all of the iPhone 14s I've tested. It runs circles around my iPhone 14 Pro Max and it's pretty fantastic. But I think the main reason why the 14 Plus is bomb when it comes to demand is the price. But for only $100 more, you get a more premium build, the newest and more powerful A16 Bionic processor, a way nicer 120Hz variable refresh rate on the display, a more advanced camera suite, new features like the always-on display and dynamic island. The list of benefits is pretty
dynamic island, why is that a big deal? It's not that cool, I'm gonna be honest.
At this point. So even if it's not as big, it makes a lot of sense why folks would opt for the 14.
Couldn't you get the dynamic island in just like an update? I think you could just do that.
Pro, and the 14 Plus is just $100 cheaper. And all of these factors are compounded by the fact that Apple has kind of reached the end of the rope here when it comes to this particular design of the iPhone. It's essentially been the same since the debut of the iPhone 12, and
yeah, I'm gonna be honest, the iPhone can't get any better. I think they should just try to find out something else that people would want. Like maybe I don't know, Samsung did a flip phone, like a flip iPhone or whatever, flip Samsung phone or whatever. I think that would be pretty cool for like a flip iPhone, you know?
the company has put in efforts to better differentiate the Pro model offerings with the exclusive features. It really feels like it's straight up abandoned the regular iPhone. I mean, think about it. Name one major upgrade that the non-Pro iPhone has had since the iPhone 12. Can you think of one? Probably not. And in many ways, the iPhone 14 isn't even something I'd consider a stalling of momentum. To me, it's a real step backwards. Now, maybe this is something necessary that Apple needs to do in order to not make their lineup so similar, or maybe the master plan is to persuade buyers to pony up more money for the Pros by making the regular iPhone so lackluster. Whatever it might be, I think the significant lack of sales on the iPhone 14 has ruffled a lot of feathers back at Apple. Word on the street is they are rethinking whatever initial plans they had for this year, given that
for the iPhone 15 lineup, apparently they pulled that off, which is insane.
Stars starting to fade, and there's a lot of pressure now on having the iPhone 15 lineup be a sweeping success. And I know there's a lot of rumors out there for a super high-end iPhone 15 Ultra that may be made out of titanium like the Apple Watch Ultra, and all of that is great, super excited about it, but it's still a head scratcher around how Apple is going to reignite interest around the regular iPhone.
There is one thing. I think what they need to do is just make it an unbreakable iPhone. You know, I think that would be pretty cool. Just an iPhone that you couldn't break. You get a chainsaw, can't break it. I know you can get that in like, I don't know, I know you can get that in cases, but I think that would be amazing if it was just unbreakable. You could put a chainsaw and it was waterproof.
I think this simple upgrade would bring a lot of people back to the regular iPhones. If we were to have this one standard feature with lowered prices and an updated form factor, I know I'd be excited for the regular iPhone again. But hey, that's just me, and I want to know what you guys think. What do you guys think about the iPhone 14? Do you think it's a total failure, or do you think it just needs more time? Curious to get.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I wouldn't buy the iPhone 14 if I had that money to throw away. I guess that's the end of this video. If you did end up enjoying it, please subscribe. I mean, we're really close to 1,000, and I've subscribed when we hit 1,000, so that's pretty cool. The video if you haven't already. I mean, if you're this far in the video, you're probably enjoying it, so please like the video. I might sound a little quiet, but it's just because I have a cold, and I'm sorry about that. A little bit of a scratchy voice. And bye.